guys, this is Jess here from Nate and Jess Personal Finance, Travel, and Investing. Today I wanted to talk about how my husband and we grew our 3 property portfolio together over time. If that sounds good to you, consider subscribing and also hit the like button and share this video with others. Thank you. So first off, I wanted to explain that my husband and we were not gifted anything to kind of grow our portfolio over time to this point where we own 3 properties. We lived and grew up in average households over time, and my dad, I lost him back when I was 16. So we did not get this from anybody. We just did this on our own over time, taking on risk and just willing to kind of give it a chance. Anyway, so it all kind of starts back in 2009, December 13. My husband and we ended up we got married. So that was the beginning. We got married. And then in June of 2010, we bought our first property. I believe we were like 24, 25. We were in our mid 20s. And yeah, so we bought our first property. Now I don't recommend to do this, but we did that by borrowing on our 401k and paying it off to buy our first property. We didn't make a ton of income at the time, but we were willing to borrow on it. We figured, hey, this is a good investment, especially taking on the downturn of that market back in the '08 crash. We were still in it, and we wanted to go ahead and purchase our first home. So we did. We bought our first property. It ended up being a 5.25% interest at the time. Now, kind of fast forward a bit. We owned this property. We did a 30-year mortgage, and it took about, maybe like 2016-ish. And we didn't buy yet. We actually refinanced our primary at the time, which was our first property, into a 15-year mortgage at 2.99% at the time, which is amazing, right? And we got it at 15 years. We barely paid more than we were already paying. So I was like, why not? Why not do it? It was a huge drop in interest rate, so it made complete sense. Well, what ended up happening after that, we wanted to go ahead and considered moving out of Florida. So I grew up in Florida all my life, and we lived in Florida. He lived in Florida most of his life. He didn't, live there as a child. He grew up in like Pennsylvania and stuff like that. But most of his life, he grew up in Florida. Anyway, so we decided to take a big leap. My husband wanted to get a different type of job, and we ended up being kind of attracted to Colorado. I found out that my job actually was out in Colorado as well, and I figured, hey, well, why not check out Colorado? So before we moved to Colorado, we decided to go ahead and visit Colorado. So we did a big road trip. I believe it was in 2016, kind of the end of August. We did a massive road trip from Florida all the way to Colorado. Went through Colorado, kind of went up through, checked out Colorado, Front Range. We loved it. Even checked out Grand Junction, went through, kind of did went up to like Wyoming, South Dakota. We hit up kind of a lot of national parks and everything. But we wanted to check out primarily Colorado, but we did this massive trip, and we kind of went and whipped back through, going through Tennessee and all of that. We fell in love with Colorado. So what we asked ourselves is well, how can we move to Colorado? My work, like I said, would let me transfer out there. So my husband, he decided to fly out for an interview. He applied for a few jobs, got the position he has today, but he did this by flying out, interviewing, and he got the job successfully. So we're ready to get kind of the ball rolling at that point. It's like, well, this is getting real now. So we're going to go ahead and, he's going to go ahead and take the job. And he left, his job in February of, I believe, 2017. And yeah, so February 2017, he left his job. He went out to Colorado. We rented at the time an apartment. And I hung back for a bit because I was waiting on a promotion opportunity. And then, we actually decided, because after talking to, I actually did talk to Clark Howard on the phone and a few other financial advisors, and they suggested maybe considering renting out our house, which was something I was totally against, totally scared about, and unfamiliar. It's like, well, why would I do that? You hear horror stories about renting out homes, how horrible it is, right? Well, I decided, well, how much risk really is it? Worth a try. I mean, it gives us the opportunity that if it doesn't work out in Colorado, we could always go back to the property in Florida. So we went and did that. We learned a lot the first year. We rented it out. We used a manager. Unfortunately, we ended up choosing a different manager later. Just didn't work out with us, but we learned a lot. We didn't prepare the house enough for the tenants at the time, and we ended up just kind of learning a lot of lessons, like I said, throughout that first year. And it worked out. We ended up finding another manager, which was actually helping manage the property next door to us at the time, right, to that property, our first home. And so we talked to her. We decided, hey, let's try this other management company. And we did. And ever since then, when we switched, it's worked out great, being especially an out of state and, investor, I guess, so it worked out. And that allowed us to keep the property. And then what happened is, hey, well, Colorado, we fell in love with it and we wanted to stay here, but we were afraid that, hey, if we didn't buy or lock ourselves into this market, we would end up having to go back to Florida. So that kind of put some pressure to purchase in Colorado sooner than later in 2017. So we ended up doing that. We ended up purchasing in Colorado in August of 2017. We ended up actually doing a withdrawal of our 401k. Don't recommend doing this unless you think it's a good idea, but we, again, still look at these as investments that we don't plan to sell, by the way. And we did have to pay a massive penalty. So definitely don't just do this. But anyway, we took out the minimum 5%, bought the home here in Colorado, which we live in today. And now we're here. Thankfully we did, because the market, as you can tell, has gone up substantially, and we would have probably not been able to afford to buy if we would have waited. So since then we've done some, because since we did a 5% down, we didn't have the 20% and we had to pay PMI and all of that. So with the increase of the appreciation of the property, we were able to refinance at these lowered interest rates a couple of times, getting out of PMI, ended up getting, now we're at a 2.875% on our current home. Amazing. So we're keeping it, I believe, unless there's a really good opportunity that makes sense where we shouldn't, but most likely we're looking to keep it. And yeah, so we live in here today. Well, what happened in 2020 after this, okay? So that's where we're at now, is we still have this home. How did we get our third home? Okay, so now to the third home, our management company, back before, I believe it was in 2019, we talked to our manager and we said, hey, I know that you help manage the property next to ours in Florida. Would you be able to mention to the owners that, hey, if you ever decide that you may want to consider selling your property, can you check with us first to see, because we would be interested in buying your home if the opportunity arises where you're interested in selling. Well, the opportunity did arise in October of 2020 during this whole pandemic mess. And we decided, hey, we're going to jump on this opportunity. Now, an investment loan, you have to put at least 15% or 20% down. So we decided to do 20%, ended up being a lower rate, and didn't have to pay PMI. So we ended up doing that. We withdrew from our 401k or retirement account. It wasn't our 401k again, at this point. It was just from my husband's old job. But we withdrew, took the hit, paid the penalties and everything, which was pretty massive. And we bought the property and we put some work into it and we rented it out. And we still rent it out to the same tenant right now, which is great. They've even renewed. So it's worked out pretty well. We ended up putting new flooring and some minor work into it to get it rented and ready to go. Kind of fast forwarding to now, we recently were able to, because Florida, we're in the Tampa Bay area, has kind of blown up substantially. And we were able to do a cash out refinance of this property recently. So now we're waiting, we're thinking about, because now we're to now, okay? So we just did that, and now we're contemplating what to do next. But we have different plans, which you might be able to see in future videos, but we're weighing out, really considering leaving here and renting it out just because the market warrants it. But we have to decide first what we're doing, buying or renting, and what we're doing next. And then also, how much work does it cost to get this house ready? Because it does need some work. It's not ready to go right now. Need some, work with different things like with the kitchen and, some little handyman things. So we'll see. But if it's reasonable, we're really thinking about keeping it and renting it out and then leaving and seeing what opportunities arise for us, because we just, we're ready for the next move. But anyway, that's kind of how we got our 3 properties. We're just average people, and it just shows that, we're representing that anybody can do this, and grow it. There is risk, and we've definitely, I can't say it's perfect. We've definitely learned quite a bit and had to deal with some growing pains for sure. So I'm not saying, hey, it's easy, and it's not for everybody. And I'm not saying, hey, that everybody should do it the way we've done it. We just look at each of these properties as an investment for us, and we hope to keep and hold these properties over time to grow a portfolio. So anyway, if you liked what I just talked about, go ahead and consider, again, subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and sharing it with others. Hopefully this inspires you to consider doing what we've done. If you have a lot of equity in your home and the market could warrant renting it out, you could consider doing what we've done. 2 of our properties have been primaries that we've turned into the rentals. Only one has been one that we've actually bought as a rental. So anyway, thank you guys. Take care.